Welcome to Emerging Tech Mastery, a show that demystifies cutting-edge technology like cryptocurrency, the blockchain, metaverse, NFTs, virtual reality, the maker movement, artificial intelligence, machine learning, cloud, edge, and even fog computing. Strap in as we ride into the fourth industrial revolution. Emerging Tech Mastery provides actionable knowledge, regardless of skill level, from experts in the trenches. We piece together this intel in easy-to-consume media formats, processes, and procedures. See you in the future.
Hey everyone, thanks for joining us on another episode of Emerging Tech Mastery. I'm your host, Aaron Mungle, and we have another friend of the show and tech correspondent and knower of all things tech. That would be Eric Azaris. Eric, thank you for joining us again. I guess we have not scared you off yet.
Hey Aaron, thanks. Happy to be here, and I'm ready to dive into the world of what exactly are we talking about this week?
That would be artificial intelligence. It's actually incredible. We've gone so many episodes without discussing AI, and it makes me realize that I guess maybe there was a little bit of my own processing and learning. And not to mention, before we recorded, we were talking about how there's been a lot of marketing and buzzwords and just people throwing, all kinds of AI tips and tools, like especially on LinkedIn. And I have found it to be, I guess, a little bit repelling, although I knew AI was a critical part of a lot of software we use, apps, phones, basically anything going on a computer that has some form of automation or things being done for you. We're going to get into those details, but now's the time for discussing AI. I think so. I'm pretty excited. And you have been studying up on AI, and you're going to help demystify it for us as we do here on ETM.
Yes. So like you said, AI has really become something that has become mainstream in a way. I mean, the study of artificial intelligence has, depending on which historian or scientist you ask, dates back many decades ago. But recently it has become commonplace in everything we touch and do nowadays. And even like my grandma asks me about AI, right? So that's how pervasive it is now. Like you hear commercials on TV saying it becomes like a feature that you hear about a product, right? And it's a feature that they show off. Oh, this new electric scooter is powered by AI, right? So it's becoming something that is not just reserved for those that are in computer science. It is something that marketers, managers, everyday people are using. And since the moment they wake up in the morning until they go to bed at night, they are using AI day in and day out, either right in front of them or the AI is working behind the scenes. So it's really part of our everyday lives by now.
I guess people are probably wondering, well, let's get to the meat and potatoes here. And we're going to talk about artificial intelligence. We're going to talk about machine learning, and we're going to talk about some of the spokes that are a part of this big wheel. And I want everyone, before we start getting into the meat here, to just understand that artificial intelligence is a very broad term that composes many different subsets. We don't intend to cover every single little detail here. We aim to hit the high points, make this a really solid introduction. And we really want this to be something that gets you aware of some of the supporting concepts and terms around AI and machine learning, for example. But we really want to make this sort of the table of contents, I think you said before we started. I like how you put that. So let's get into it. What is artificial intelligence, also known as AI?
Yeah, so artificial intelligence, in very simple terms, is using a computer to solve problems in an intelligent way using algorithms. Okay, so what does that mean? Let's dissect that. So the IBM definition is AI is defined as anything that makes machines act more intelligently. That's it, and that's pretty broad. But let's go even further. So the idea is that with AI, we're able to extend our human capabilities to accomplish tasks that us as humans would not be able to complete by ourselves alone, and things that machines would not be able to do by themselves alone. So really, it's a tool. AI is a tool that humans can use to accomplish or to solve a task or to accomplish a task. That's pretty much it. So you may be wondering, okay, so what is an example of AI? Because perhaps the word AI conjures up a lot of different imagery in your head. You're thinking probably robots, or maybe there was that old movie called AI, right? Specifically, when we're talking about AI in this modern context, the big category underneath the umbrella term of AI is the idea of machine learning, or ML.
They often go together, and even in my own sort of writings or the way I've designed the site topics, I have put AI and machine learning in the same category.
Yeah.
So I don't know if that's fully accurate.
So the overarching terminology is artificial intelligence. That's the big umbrella. Now, underneath artificial intelligence, there are some other disciplines in AI, but we're not going to touch those today. But the main focus would be machine learning, because that is going to be the vast majority of what people are familiar with when we're talking about their everyday lives. So machine learning. So what does that mean? Is it a robot at an elementary school? Like, I'm picturing like a robot like with a graduation cap learning, right?
Right.
So it's kind of like that, because so machine learning is a branch. It's a branch of artificial intelligence, and it focuses on the use of two main components: data and algorithms, right? So the data is information we're feeding into a system, and algorithms, how it's able to make sense of that data. So those are the two main things, right? It's basically like you have a formula and you're plugging in numbers into a formula in very basic terms. So if you remember, like I'm thinking back to my geometry days, right? Like, what is it? Y equals mx plus b, right? That's a formula for a line, right? And so that's maybe think of an algorithm like that. I know it's not technically an algorithm, but just bear with me there, right? So that's it. So then we plug in data, right? So that's the data that we feed. Then we have data that we feed into that, and then we get a line, right? So, but more specifically, machine learning, through the use of statistical methods, the algorithms are trained to make classifications or predictions. Now, those are two words we should latch onto: classifications and predictions, right? And now these insights will drive decision making, or it will help the person do what they want to do. For example, okay, let's get some concrete examples right out the gate. So do you have Netflix or Amazon Video?
Yeah.
What? Okay.
Absolutely. Yep.
So after you watch a Netflix movie, the algorithm is going to suggest to you what you should watch next. Now, it's not just going to suggest any old movie. Maybe you're binge watching some sci-fi stuff, or maybe some Korean dramas, international Korean dramas or something, right? I don't know what you watch, but but what you watch is very different from what I watch, and different from what you, the listeners, probably watch, and it's going to suggest based on your viewing habits. So the data that it's taking in is your viewing history, right? Maybe it's based on your demographic. It's based on what movies you've thumbs up, right? I think on Netflix you can either put a thumbs up or thumbs down if you like it or not like it, right? If you watch a movie and you did not complete watching it, maybe there's a reason why you didn't complete it. Maybe you didn't like it. So it's going to predict what movie that you might be interested in, right? Same thing if you're shopping for something on Amazon. Based on your shopping history, based on your viewing history, time of the year, right? Nowadays, I've been getting a lot of suggested items to buy on Amazon, and those suggested items are scented candles that smell like pumpkin spice, right? Because it is September and it's autumn, right? And it's been suggesting to me to buy new tennis shoes because it knows that I've been browsing for tennis equipment. All that data that it's collecting it's able to make better suggestions custom tailored to you. For you, your search history looks very different from mine, and your items look very different from mine. So you're going to get different. What is in your suggestions? I'm guessing it'd be maybe some apothecary related items, or
Yep, absolutely.
yeah. So it's learning. So it's learning that data. So based on data, it's able to also so either make predictions about what you're likely to buy or classify, right? So it's being able to learn what box things should fit inside of, where things should go. Yeah, I mean, so basically a classification, and we can go into some more details later on. But that's the high level explanation. So machine learning falls under the umbrella of artificial intelligence, and it's focused on using data and algorithms and statistical methods to make classifications or predictions. That's it.
So I like the way you said that. Basically, like I'm thinking like a recommendations engine, so to speak, or
Yes.
like
Yeah.
helping you to you're helping tell the algorithms what are your preferences, and then they make recommendations. And as we agree or disagree based on watching what they recommended or not watching what they recommended, it's paying
Mm-hmm.
attention the whole time. Now, one thing that we haven't really dove into is what's the purpose of all this. And I'm going to actually tee you up here because we didn't talk about this concept, but there's a concept thrown around a lot called big data. What is big data? Well, big data are those large data sets that are too big, too complex, and just too voluminous to be handled by so-called traditional data processing systems. So, from what I've gathered, we actually need AI and machine learning because of big data. So, can you tell us a little bit about why we even need this in the first place? Because it
Yeah.
seems like if we had the old way, we would just be doing it the old way. We wouldn't even have these new tools.
The truth is, there is massive, massive amounts of data now and it's hard for us to make sense of all that data because there's so many different inputs coming in, right? So the simple example that we just talked about was, okay, well, based on your viewing history, it can suggest, oh, you like cowboy movies? We're gonna recommend cowboy movies. Okay, well, that's pretty straightforward, right? Because those are all kind of in the same category. Well, it gets more complicated than that. Especially if you look at all the data points. For example, let's say that you are ordering something. Okay, you're using Grubhub, right? Or you're buying something online. Oh, we'll use Amazon again because I have an Amazon tab open in front of me right now. So there are so many logistics involved and so many different variables involved that we don't even realize all these things happening all at once when we order something on Amazon, right? So I'm going to order this pumpkin spice candle. I'm going to go ahead and click add it to my cart. Okay. And where is it coming from? Right. Is it going to be in some warehouse? Are they out of stock or is it in stock? Is it going to suggest that I bundle my candle with maybe an autumn wreath to go along with it? Is it based on my profile? Is there a fulfillment center nearby? Where am I? Right? How am I going to choose 2-day or 1-day delivery? Right? Is it going to push some coupons on me? Right? Maybe I left it in my cart, and I went away. So to entice me to come back, it's going to give me 10 cents off, right? So there's all sorts of different, as you can see, there are all sorts of moving parts right now. After you start breaking it down, it's not like there is somebody manually doing this on the other side of the computer screen, right? There isn't somebody who is like watching my account and quickly pushing some coupons to me or quickly putting suggestions in front of me. No, it's all automated, right? Because I'm just one person. And then think of the thousands, millions of other people using Amazon right now to make sense of all that activity in real time, mind you. It's happening all in real time, meaning that it's happening right there on the fly. It needs AI to be able to use all that data, make sense of it, classify it, and spit it back out so they can make their sale all in real time. So that's why we need artificial intelligence. And then also, okay, well, then what's the best way to get that package delivered to me, right? It doesn't just, believe it or not, it doesn't just happen to magically appear at my doorstep. Well, although it does feel like magic sometimes, right? Like it figures out. So AI is going to figure out the best way for it to get to me based on what I chose for shipping, and it's going to hook me up with the right, or hook the product up with the right delivery person, put it on their route, right? And because they have a route with other delivery packages. So as you can see, once you start unfolding everything, it's this really complex network of decisions that need to be made, and they need to be made quickly. So yeah, that's why AI is needed, because the modern world is very complex with a lot of moving parts. Decisions need to be made quickly. Lots of data needs to be processed very quickly. And yeah, so that's just one quick example, one quick scenario. And I'm sure if you're listening, you could probably are thinking about some other situations where, oh, wait a second, I wonder how did this, how did this actually happen, right? So it's probably AI. Some flavor of AI probably made it happen.
Before we get into types of AI, because I do think that, there's a lot of like terms that are thrown out there, and I do want to touch on like what people are being exposed to and where that fits in. But let's talk about something you mentioned, which was structured versus unstructured data. Can you tell us a little bit about that?
Yeah. Okay. So learning, right? We're talking about learning. Well, what are we talking about when we talk about learning? Data input, right? So structured data is data that is organized and labeled, right? So for example, on my Amazon profile, it has my name, it has my credit card number, it has my address, it has all sorts of information that you would expect like in a spreadsheet or a table, right? Organized and very clean columns and rows, right? So if you feed data in organized data into an algorithm, it plays really nicely, right? But that's not always the case. There's other forms of data. They call it unstructured data, and as the name implies, there's no traditional label that you would expect from a table or a spreadsheet. One example would be a picture, an image. Maybe it's a picture of, okay, so imagine like a stoplight camera. Maybe you're in a city and there are cameras everywhere. The cameras are taking pictures or videos of the cars, right? And it's able to understand, okay, this is a car, this is a person, right? But it did not come with any labels, right? The system has to examine those frames from the video and start to learn and understand, okay, this shape is a car. This humanoid shape, that is a person. This over here, that is a stoplight. So it's not labeled, but it's something that's learned over time. And the more you feed, the more the system gets more information, the better it gets at understanding. Another example is if you ever set up your own Alexa or Google Home, often in the setup process, the system, you start by having the system begin to get familiar with your voice. Or another example would be if you have a phone, I don't know, do you have an iPhone or Samsung or?
Yep, definitely.
If you have a fingerprint reader or if you have face unlock, right? You use a picture of your face or you use your thumbprint, you feed that information into the system and it learns what your face looks like, or it learns the pattern of your thumbprint. So that's another example of unstructured data. That goes into the category of computer vision. That's another subset of machine learning. Computer vision is image recognition. So I'm going to slow down there for a second before we go too fast. So that was unstructured data and computer vision. So just to rewind for a second. So at the very top, we have AI. That under AI, we have machine learning. That under machine learning, we have a branch called computer vision, and I love it because if you ever use like a QR code, or if you ever use Google Lens, or if you ever did like a reverse image search on Google, those are examples of computer vision, right? Being able to feed a visual picture into a machine learning system, and the system being able to recognize and understand, make sense of that picture. That is computer vision. Yeah. So like an example would be like for Facebook, if you, for those that still use Facebook, if you have a photo gallery and you have a lot of people, maybe there's a group photo in that picture, after a while, it will suggest to you based on your friends, oh, is this Rish? Is this Jason Kelly? I'm sorry, we can bleep out their names. Is this Rish? Is this Jason? Is this Todd? Is this Bob? Right? Because it's starting to recognize the faces in the pictures. Then it's going to auto suggest tagging of those people, right, based on their facial structure, based on you've tagged them before and it knows that they're your friend, and all, but mainly it's because of the way their picture looks, right? That's image recognition or computer vision.
And while we're at it, because you had a chart you had shared, how does deep learning play into that tree of terms? And I know we're not going to like be, again, super exhaustive of these terms, but we might as well throw them out while we're covering intro terms.
Yeah, so deep learning is like machine learning, but on steroids. Just massive data, data that is so big in quantity that you need special computers to process all that data. So you won't be able to run it like on your MacBook or your laptop you got on at Best Buy. You'll need some big servers for that one. Those are for the big enterprises. Deep learning.
Good to know. Okay, so I think you gave a really good overview of the main terms. So let's dive into a few things that people might have seen out there, in quotes, right?
Yes.
And one of those things, I'm going to throw out a couple of terms, like we have generative AI being thrown out. We have LLM, large language models, or natural language processing, which is behind the all infamous now ChatGPT. So can you tell us about those two concepts and what they fall under, whether AI or machine learning or even something else?
Sure. Okay, so I love that you asked this question because the term generative AI is now picking up some steam, and a lot of people are using it now. So it's important that we define what it is. So generative AI is AI creating something new that did not previously exist. Now that is a very broad definition, and that is done intentionally because it covers so many different examples. So when people think generative AI, a lot of people think of like DALL-E, right? There's that or Kyber or Midjourney, and that's when you type out a scene or you describe a scene, then the system generates a brand new picture. I want a picture of a lizard wearing a top hat, tap dancing on the moon, right? You feed that into a system and it'll create a brand new picture based on that description. Yeah, that is generative AI. But what some people don't realize is that ChatGPT itself is considered generative AI. Although it's not making pictures, it is creating text based on a prompt that you gave it or a question that you asked. For example, if you tell it ChatGPT, make me a rap in the style of Ice Cube about Amish people, right? So if it creates like a rap or if it makes a screenplay or whatever it is, that is something that previously did not exist, right? And it now has been generated. So that is generative AI. Another example that you may have seen on a daily basis is closed captioning. So if you go to YouTube and you click on the auto-generated closed captioning, the system is listening to the audio on the video, on that YouTube video, and on the fly, it's creating text. It's creating text to accompany the words. So that is generating something that did not previously exist, but based on data that's being inputted. So a lot of that stuff that we encounter is generative AI. Now, you might be thinking, well, isn't everything generative AI, right? Isn't all AI generative? Well, not necessarily. Some AI is just classifying information or giving recommendations. It's not composing brand new content. So just think of generative AI as the creation of brand new content. And that content can be in text format. It could be a video. It could be pictures. Heck, I've seen some generative AI where it composes actual songs. I've seen some services like that, right? Or speech, text to speech. One can argue that can be generative AI as well. So That's the terminology. That's the definition of it. And then we have natural language processing. So that's the magic that happens when you are composing an email in Google, right? Maybe you are writing a cover letter, or you're sending a resume, and as you type it out, the system is understanding the context in which you were writing, and also understands grammar and vocabulary, and it also is familiar with your own writing style and words that you frequently use. So it's on the fly. It's going to, using all those variables, start to autocomplete some of your words, and also typing into ChatGPT or talking to your Google Home or your Alexa or Siri, right? You are using your natural language as if you're speaking to another person in the room. You're asking Google about the weather, and you're saying it in very conversational, natural words, right? So that's what we mean by natural language processing, being able to talk to machines, interface with machines in a conversational way, and then in turn, the machine responding back to you in a conversational way, like it's a very intelligent chatbot, like it is another being talking to you. I know some people, they have conversations with their Alexas and their Google Homes on a daily basis. Yeah. I mean, have you ever seen that movie Her? By the way,
I have not.
it's about artificial intelligence. So basically, in the film, the protagonist, portrayed by Joaquin Phoenix, he has a virtual assistant not unlike Siri, and it's voiced by Scarlett Johansson, but it becomes so lifelike and realistic. Like, he actually begins to have like a relationship, like a romantic relationship with his AI, because it is so convincing. Now it's really just algorithms and ones and zeros, but it does it in such a convincing way that he feels like he's making a human connection with a machine. So we're not at that point yet, but we might be. So I didn't mean to scare everybody, but yeah, that's natural language processing.
No, that reminds me of those like robot like relationships people are having. So really,
Yeah.
that could be the engine for the robots that people are having relationships with. And I know that's getting very dystopian. We did not intend to, but you know what? When you're talking AI, it tends to go off a cliff pretty easily. Now, here's
Yeah.
a couple other examples. You mentioned like a chat bot, or like that
Yep.
chat bot like feature. And you did already mention recommendation engines. You mentioned, I believe, image recognition, if I'm not mistaken, and
Yep.
self-driving cars. I believe
Yep.
your thing is considered computer vision. Now, what would speech recognition go under? Because you did mention Siri, but I'm not sure
Ooh.
where
Okay.
that falls under.
Speech recognition. Okay, so how about you can make a guess? I'll let you make a guess based on the info that we talked about.
Probably machine learning.
Yes, it is definitely machine learning. Yeah, because in what context are we talking about here? Like when you are composing like a text message, but you don't want to type it out. You want to talk in. Maybe your hands are not free, right? You're multitasking, and you want to, instead of typing out your words, you want to speak your words. Is that right?
Yep, exactly.
Yeah, that's exactly right. And that specifically would be natural language processing.
Okay, cool. So feel like we did cover a lot. Now, recommendations engine, you did say that in the context of an algorithm. Would
Yeah.
that also be considered machine learning? And I mean, here's another distinction I want to make, is that a lot of these big companies and corporations have had AI behind the scenes as algorithms, social media, Amazon, like you said, Netflix. But I do think it's kind of cool to think that generative AI, so called, is in our hands, right? And maybe we can touch on a little bit
Yeah.
of like AI in the hands of the average person. And then I know this is such a dense topic that we probably don't need to go too far into it. But would recommendation engines also be considered machine learning?
Yeah, absolutely. Because the system is learning and improving based on your habits, right? So the recommendation engine becomes more accurate, quote unquote, the more that you shop or the more that you interact with the system. So it's learning about your profile, it's learning about what you like, what you dislike, what your habits are. Have you ever heard of that famous case? Gosh, I think it must be like 10 years ago now, where Target, the department store or the big box store, Target, was able to figure out that this woman was pregnant before the father
Yes,
even
yes,
figured it
yes.
out. Right. So that is an example of machine learning, right? Because how did it figure it out before the father did? Well, it was based on historically people that are about to enter a certain stage of pregnancy. They will purchase certain food items or purchase certain medical products, right? So this person, famously, they got upset. They're like, "Hey, why is Target recommending pregnancy products to my daughter? Like, she's not pregnant." Then they go, "Oh, Dad, I have some." I have something to tell you. I am pregnant. So so the system was able to figure out before it was officially announced, and based on the buying habits alone. And that is done through learning through the person's purchases and comparing that to what other people who have been in that particular situation have purchased, right? So they're able to profile it and, for your convenience, give you items that they are predicting that you will need based on your habits.
Okay, let's just recap. All machine learning is artificial intelligence, but not all artificial intelligence is machine learning. So I'm going to throw
Yes.
you a little zinger here. What are
Yeah.
some examples of artificial intelligence that are not machine learning?
So there are some systems called expert systems, and they emulate, instead of using data, modeling their decision making based on data, it will emulate the decision makings of human experts. So maybe there's someone who's really good at a certain craft. The AI will be modeled after that person's brain instead of learning from data that's inputted or gathered over time. So really it's more like it's more hard coded, right? Than instead of learning. So it's or a rule based system. A rule based system of AI is decisions based on explicit rules. If then this. If that, then this. So it's a little bit more rigid and more prescribed than it's not as flexible as machine learning. So, but that is another example of artificial intelligence. And there's also I'm actually just reading off ChatGPT now, ironically, genetic algorithms. That's another technique. I don't know too much about it, but I know that for us, we all we need to know is that there are other algorithms out there that are not dependent on machine learning. There's some other systems out there, but the most common system is machine learning for everyday use.
So what you said about it's more rigid, it's like I'm imagining like people have talked about, loading up Chat GPT with only history or only Shakespeare. So you could have like Shakespeare Chat GPT. So it's sort of like you could have these deeper data sets and setups where you're just making this chatbot, Chat GPT, if you will, only about Shakespeare. Like we're going to dump every Shakespeare play and every historical book on Shakespeare into this model. And I think that's something that has not been really discussed much because I think everyone's chasing the shiny objects right now. But I think that will be a really, frankly, rich and cool use case. There's another tool. Again, I'm pretty limited in what I've played with, but there's a tool called PDF.ai. And I really like this tool because what you do is you feed a PDF to this program and the program essentially reads the PDF, right? And you can have a Chat GPT like experience about a given PDF. So I was sort of thinking like, wow, that's so cool because I mean, I would encourage everyone to continue with your normal reading and like analysis. Like we certainly don't want AI to replace doing the hard work. But what I do like is that this augmentation can help you do a deep dive in that material a little bit quicker. So for example, when I tried it, I actually still maybe not quite word for word, but I still gave it a pretty solid skim and tried to dive into a few sections of this report. It was, I think, a legal report from a university, and I really enjoyed that experience of it. So I do like these targeted examples of how you can use it. I mean, it's such a broad set of use cases, right, that are beyond the scope of this show. But maybe if you want, what are some tools that you have found exciting, since I shared a couple from my end? And also, how would you recommend people maybe start diving into this that want to learn more about it?
Sure. Yeah, I mean, the exciting thing is that AI is on all our devices that we use on a daily basis. So we are interacting with natural language processing every time we do voice commands. Whenever we do shopping, we're encountering recommendation engines, the list goes on, right? But if you are interested in not just using the technology, but actually learning about the technology, I recommend going to Microsoft.com and I guess, Aaron, we could put this in the show notes. It's aidemos.microsoft.com, and they do a great job of explaining how the different AIs work, AI technologies work, and they gave you some great examples. For instance, being able to type in text into a box and getting something they call sentiment analysis. So being able to understand the tone of what is written. Was it negative? Was it neutral? Was it positive? And then there's also image recognition. There's some great computer vision little mini tutorials where you can upload your own images and see what the process is like. Even if you're not necessarily trying to be an AI computer engineer or anything like that, I mean, just having a basic understanding of what goes through could kind of help you appreciate the technology even more. Then, of course, there's ChatGPT. I think it's great. In ChatGPT like services, they're now being integrated into a lot of things that we interact with. There's some browsers that will integrate ChatGPT into it, or there are some services where there's a ChatGPT like service that will summarize, like you mentioned, summarizing a PDF for you, right? Maybe taking a 500 word essay and then giving you like 4 bullet points in a couple lines. So that's definitely a very popular one. I mean, I stand by what I say. I mean, there's no singular product that I can recommend because it's being integrated in so many things that we use every day. Like even when I do video editing and I want to do captioning in Adobe Premiere, I click a button and it's able to listen to the audio and auto generate captions for me, right? If I want to auto fill an image with a background, it's going to be able to do that. So, I mean, there are so many instances where AI is helping us in our everyday lives, and it's just so pervasive. I guess what I'm trying to say is that it's so pervasive that we don't have to find AI. AI will find us.
Ooh, I like that. Man, I don't know if we can really top that, so I might have to call it there. And you know what? Let's just make it sort of ongoing homework to keep diving into the tools, and we'll keep an eye out for everyone of what is being integrated.
Yeah.
You make such a good point, which is that the search bar, it's no longer just in the hands of Google. I'm sure that scares them very deeply, including stuff like Bing. Microsoft Bing is kind of like not really respected or looked at, or not as much that, just not the main market share search engine. But I've heard they have a really good AI behind the scenes. So I do think you make a really good point that it's a fast moving river of development. So
and just a couple things I want to leave off with is that by the time that this podcast is posted, I'm sure that there'll be some other AI technologies that came out, and even if we just post it like 3 days from now, because that's just how quickly this moves. There's always something new popping up. And what I love is that in the beginning, many of us, including myself, was a little bit apprehensive about all these new AI tools, right? And there's always that worry, oh my gosh, is this going to replace so-and-so? Is this going to replace jobs? Or is this going to make me lazy, right? Because I don't have to read this anymore. I read the whole thing anymore. I could just get a summary from ChatGPT generated. Well, I think really it's really about adapting and using the right tool for the right job. I know that some schools, they in the beginning when ChatGPT started to pick up, they said, you know what? No, you cannot write your essays with ChatGPT. It is forbidden. You will get an F. That is plagiarism. Now, some schools are starting to embrace it, and they're saying, hey, if you use ChatGPT to assist you in writing your homework, just use a citation or tell us what prompts you used. Like, still make it in your own voice. But if you want to use ChatGPT, go ahead, just let us know what prompts you use and cite your sources, right? So that initial resistance, and not even resistance, complete rejection of this new AI technology has come around, and now people are saying, you know what, this is part of everyday lives, just like when the calculator came out, right? It is a tool. It's not a replacement for mathematics, right? But it is a way for you to help with your calculus homework, right? So, because you have your calculator that you can punch in your numbers to double check your work, you're now able to solve even more complex problems, right? And I think that's what we'll see with AI, right? So letting AI do the heavy lifting for us, so we as humans can focus on what we really do well, and that's to be creative, and that's to make those human connections, right? And there are certain things AI cannot replace. And it really, like we said before, it is at the very beginning of the show, AI is used as a tool to augment our human capabilities. So I just wanted to leave with that.
You get a bionic arm, and you get a bionic arm, and you get a bionic arm. I think that is a great way to close it out. It's another tool we have to learn. Nothing's getting replaced. If anything, more tedious work is being done. More powerful outcomes can create that we're never been able to do before.
Yes.
With the big data comment I mentioned earlier, we need this to parse through all the data. So we can't exist in this new world of data. And there's a chart that I'm going to put in the show notes. I believe it was around 2000. You see like this giant explosion in the amount of data that's being produced. I don't think we understand how much data has been produced. So it's a new powerful tool that we need to exist in this new environment. And there's nothing to worry about. And we're going to help guide everyone, and let us know what you think. If you have something that you found useful or some angle you want us to cover, we're happy to cover it. Eric, thanks again for demystifying this. Everyone can go ahead and plan on this being a series. So I'm looking forward to it, honestly. This is the beginning, not the end, even though it's the end of this episode.
All right, take care. Thanks a lot. Thanks for having me. I'll talk to you later.
See you in the artificially generated metaverse.
Peace. What exactly are we talking about this week?